Okay, so hello, dear friends and colleagues from all Baltic countries, and I assume not only. We are very happy to launch this event today. It's a presentation of Baltic Media Health Check. It's annual report where we analyze finances of Baltic media, how they have lived for the last year, and especially now during COVID. And you will hear a presentation from my colleague Aija, who is actually based now in Bangkok. So we are like, it's really very, very international event. I'm myself today in Tallinn and very fancy office of business newspaper Aripaiv. Because of quarantine, I couldn't go to Riga. So I'm very thankful for colleagues for this cooperation. It's really helps. And I think this COVID has also maybe a best or like brighter side where we can really see who is a friend and how we can rely to each other. But shortly about how we are going to proceed today. So now for the first 20 minutes, Aija will give a presentation. She will tell the main key facts she has discovered while working on this report. After presentation, the report will be available also on SSE Riga website. You will be able to go on the section of Media Center, and they have this subsection where are all research published, so you will be able to read it there. After Aija's 20-minute presentation, we will have 10 minutes for questions and answers. And then for 1 hour, we will talk about the future of media business, specifically focusing on Baltic countries, where we will discuss with a board member of TVNet and from Latvian Marketing Association board member about the future of Baltic media, digital and all the other things that's how possible to earn money. And we will have also Mogens Bjerregård. He is president of European Federation of Journalists, and he has collected information on how in different countries the state provides money to support media, because it seems that it will be more and more important. That's why we wanted to talk about this as well, to see what are the practices and what maybe we as Baltic countries can also adapt for our media markets. During these presentations and this event, you can send questions to us. For this, we are using a platform Slido. If you are not familiar, from time to time you will see under the screen there will be subtitle how to write it, but it's like quite easy. It's slide.do, and then you have to go to this platform and write event code #SSE Media. But be careful, like SSE should be with capital letters and media is with small letters. So it's very sensitive, and it's important that you follow all these rules and you really type #SSE capital letters, media with small letters. And then we all will be able to see your questions, and I will ask them to Aija or later also to the participants for panel discussion. So I think that's it. We can now start, and I'm giving the microphone to Aija. So Aija, please welcome and tell us what you have discovered working on this huge report for last, I think, half year at least.
Okay. Hello, Inga, and hello, everybody else. My name is Aija Krūtaine. I'm the editor of the Baltic Media Health Check, and I'm happy to be presenting our latest report today to you. Just a second. Okay, sorry, just getting to know all this. So just very shortly about what is Baltic Media Health Check. So it's an annual journalistic study in which we look at what has happened in the previous year with the audiences of the most popular media, 5 in total, in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, in 5 categories, which are TV, radio, online newspapers, and magazines. And then we also look at what has happened with the finances of the owners of these media outlets. Besides this numerical part of the report, we also usually analyze topics of interest in the market. And this year, of course, it has been about how media businesses have weathered the pandemic and what has been the progress on making money with paywalls. Both are interesting and sensitive topics. Therefore, firstly, I would want to express my deepest gratitude to all the executives in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia who talked to us about these topics and were open about the challenges they faced in the time of the crisis, and also about their strategies to monetizing content. But so to move on, let's start with what changes did the most popular media companies experience in 2019. And speaking in broad terms, the tide hasn't turned, and overall the media audiences continued to fall last year. So in our report, it consists of, we basically named 75 these most popular outlets based on their rankings on Kantar and Gamios data. And we saw that in 2019, 24 outlets managed to increase their audience, but majority, or 40 outlets, had less viewers, listeners, and readers than in 2018. In Lithuania, there has been a slight change in the data collection methodology. Therefore, we have ranked their most popular newspapers and magazines, but we cannot compare the data with 2018 and say what has happened. So going deeper into each category, let's start with TV, which gets the most of the advertising euros in the three countries. So the good news is that last year, 5 TV channels saw their consolidated share of viewing grow. And the biggest winners here are the public broadcasters. I mean, in all 3 countries, their main TV channels were watched more than in the previous year. In Latvia, also, the change, it's very significant that for the first time in a long time, the public broadcaster's main TV channel, LTV1, took the position of the most watched TV channel from TV3, which has held this position for many years. There are some other changes. In Lithuania, for example, Lietuvos Rytas TV has dropped out, and in its place, TV1 has entered the top. And this, in turn, makes the Lithuanian commercial broadcaster, Laisvas ir nepriklausomas kanalas, the dominant broadcaster in Lithuania, owning 3 of the 5 most watched TV channels. As we can also see, then Russian language channels such as PBK and TV Mir Baltic and RTR Planeta remain among the most watched TV channels in Latvia and Estonia. And also in Latvia, they actually had a good boost in their audience because of a temporary ban on RTR Planeta rebroadcasting. When we look at the financials of the most watched TV broadcasters, then we can see that most of them are in a good shape and operating with a profit. Among exceptions is the Postumas Group. Postumas Group actually has not only TV, but also publishing business, online news media, and radio stations. Based on their own report, they have invested last year money in property and intangible assets. So maybe that's the reason why they operated with losses. However, I would also like to note that the biggest players in the broadcasting are the public broadcasters in Estonia and Lithuania. Like if we just look at the numbers, then well, Estonia's and Lithuania's public broadcasters' budgets by a large share exceed the budgets of the commercial TV stations. Then looking at moving on to radio. So radio is a very stable market, and it's illustrated also by the fact that in all 3 countries in 2019, the top 5 radio stations and their positions in the rankings have not changed. So in the rankings as such, no changes. What has changed is their audience, and that mostly fell. And actually only 2 of the 15 radio stations saw their number of daily listeners increase last year. Both were of public broadcasters, radio stations. Radio broadcasters are also traditionally in a good financial situation, and only a few operate with losses. And here I would like to also highlight Lithuania's M1 radio broadcaster. Profitable media companies actually in the Baltics, because in 2019, its net profit was slightly above 1.5 million euros on a turnover of nearly 4 million euros, and M1 has this profitability ratios consistently. Then next up is the online news media, which most likely is the hottest category, taking into account the amount of time we spend online. And this year, we used Genius audience research data to determine the online news media outlets with the highest number of real users visiting their websites. We looked at the average monthly number of real users for the whole 2019, so that's a 12-month period. Online is the one category, actually the only category, where most media outlets are able to demonstrate a consistent growth in their number of visitors. I mean, 13 of the 15 most popular sites saw more visitors in 2019 than in 2018, and only 2, which was Delfi in Latvia and Postimees Group's website in Estonia, saw a slight decrease. Delfi had the highest average monthly real users, and Postimees Group's online news media, 15 minutes LT in Lithuania, TV.net in Latvia, and Postimees in Estonia, is hot on Delfi's heels. I mean, there are months when the difference is non-existent, or in Latvia when TV.net actually overcomes Delfi. As we can also see, TV3 Group's online websites also feature prominently among the most popular online media. And looking at the financials, it's a somewhat mixed lot. And partly it is because online news media are usually part of larger media groups, which operate either in business or in publishing. And there are only Delfi in Latvia, TV.net in Latvia, Delfi in Lithuania, and 15 Minutes in Lithuania, which have their own separate entities, which are independent of these. But most of these companies operated with a profit. Then about print media. Well, print has been working under unfavorable conditions for years now. Nonetheless, 3 newspapers managed to increase their audience last year. The most surprising, I think, is actually the change which took place in Latvia, because the Latvia's once dominating daily Diena returned to the top. Like it hadn't been among the most 5 read newspapers for at least 5 years, as I looked back to the data of the previous reports, but in 2019 it has actually managed to get to the second place. But other than that, there are no other significant changes at the top, and all the most read newspapers are the same as in 2019. One note about Estonia's case is that we rank the newspapers by their cover indicator, and by that, Postimees is the highest in Estonia. However, when it comes to circulation, Ohtuleht is the unbeaten winner, and it has the highest circulation of a newspaper, not only in Latvia, not only in Estonia, but across the whole Baltics. And also, when looking at financials, newspapers publishers are a mixed lot. I mean, some of Estonian publishing houses, they know their business well, and they have been very profitable and operating with good revenues and everything. But then when you look, for example, at Latvia's and Lithuania's newspaper publishers, the situation is not that good. And actually, the biggest loss in 2019 was recorded for the Lietuvos Rytas newspaper publisher. It is mainly because it sold its subsidiary, Lietuvos Rytas TV channel, for a substantially lower price than the value of its investment into it. And then when moving to the magazines, magazine publishers are usually in much better situation than their newspaper not competitors, but newspaper colleagues, let's put it that way. And but in the recent years, we can see that it's kind of the audiences are falling and the revenues of the new magazine publishers are falling as well. And so the bad news, I would say, in 2019 was that only one magazine increased the average number of readers for one issue. And the good news is that despite the drop in audiences, which sometimes is coupled with a fall in revenues, magazine publishers are able to remain profitable. And also, the most read magazines haven't changed across all the 3 countries. And the only magazine publisher which operated with a loss in 2019 actually was Latvia's Journal, which publishes the magazine Illustrated History. So yes, that would be about magazines. Here, just to give a summary of the financials, I've ranked the owners of the most popular media outlets by their net profit in each country. And I think this is actually a good graph because it shows that the soundest financial situation is for media companies in Lithuania, followed by Estonia. In Lithuania, only 2 companies out of 15 operated with losses. In Estonia, it was 2 out of 11. Meanwhile, in Latvia, more than half of the most popular media owners are operating with a loss. And one thing to note is that although Baltic media market is overall small, there are companies who make profit. And actually in 2019, there were 10 companies who had a net profit of more than 1 million euros. So this summary of 2019 brings us into 2020. Which is the year of the global pandemic, which has put media to the test. During the peak of the pandemic, the demand for information increased significantly, but as people were stuck at their homes with their computers and mobile phones and TV, this could have been the golden age for the advertisers. However, marketing budgets were cut, campaigns and ads were pulled, and media faced a sharp drop in revenue. It is fair to say that based on the executives with which we talked to, that most of the media suffered advertising revenue loss of between 30 to 60% at the peak, which is March, April, May. And this particular graph shows Latvia's advertising market fall in the first 6 months. Unfortunately, we don't have the data for Lithuania and Estonia, but I do believe that the trends are similar there. And so all this revenue drop, of course, left the newsrooms scrambling to provide more information with fewer resources. And in that situation, the cost cuts were inevitable. And in most countries, the measures taken were similar. Of course, it was either temporary or for permanent employee wage cuts. Sometimes also redundancies for TV or radios. Those were shorter programs. For print publications, it was reduced frequency or number of pages for print. However, there are also some differences when we look at how the companies dealt with the challenges, faced the challenges that the COVID brought them. And in Lithuania, actually more companies protected jobs and employee wages than in Estonia and Latvia. And it is partly because Lithuanian companies are more profitable than their peers in Latvia and Estonia. Meanwhile, in Estonia, for example, the focus was on advancing the digital transformation. learning new digital skills and developing the digital capabilities of the media houses. And also Estonia saw a boost in the digital subscriptions. When it comes to Latvia, the situation has been tough for the local media. The financial struggles that most of the media face, of course, did not help in the times of the crisis. However, we see that the Media Relief Fund did give some breathing space for the Latvian media. And also, the Riga City Council elections helped kind of in the end. Then just looking a little bit about the future, and the thing is that most likely there are more challenges for the media companies ahead. So in Latvia and Lithuania, the advertising market is expected to fall between 10 to 15% this year. In Estonia, the market might fall by as much as 20% according to the forecasts. And most media companies with whom we talked, they expect a revenue drop for this year, which of course will also impact their profitability and financial stability. And likely the next 2-3 years will be necessary to recover for both the advertising market and also for the media companies to catch up to the pre-COVID revenue levels. Also, this crisis has highlighted that regional and smaller publishers are at more risk. Usually they are working on already tight budgets, and maybe some of them have accumulated funds for 6 to 12 months to survive. But when that money runs out, the lights of those newsrooms likely will go out too, because usually behind these smaller media outlets and smaller media houses, there is nobody with big pockets to kind of give money to continue the business. Also, despite the sharp drop in the spring, pretty much most of the media companies had their revenues recovered to the previous levels by the end of summer, which is a hopeful situation. However, the uncertainty, of course, is still high. I mean, we are still in the second wave of the pandemic, and nobody really knows where it will go in the next few months. I mean, the positive thing, though, might be that both the media and the advertisers have readjusted their ways of working in these new circumstances. So hopefully it will not be, the situation will not be as dramatic. Okay, I'm really running out of time. But I also just want to say that in this year's report, like my pride is that we've put together these case studies of how media companies are dealing with their paid online products. And so we looked at the approach the media have taken, the price they ask their readers to pay, how many subscribers they have, what are their plans for the future. And here as well, just a few conclusions. Estonia is the most advanced when it comes to paid digital contents. They sell packages, and they have their digital subscribers in tens of thousands of people. Lithuanian media try to lure in more readers willing to pay for content by offering, besides their own original content, also translated articles from foreign media publications. And in Latvia, well, compared to Lithuanian and Estonian companies, we see that on average, media are offering the paid content products at lower prices than their peers. And well, most executives say that content is the key for growing subscriptions. So all I can say is you do a good job with that. I hope you manage to grow your reader revenues. The latest Baltic Media Health Check it should be already accessible on SSE Riga webpage. Here you can see the guides. Basically, go on the SSE Riga website. Under centers, you will see Media Centre, and then go to Guides and Publications, and it should be there. So that's it from me. Sorry, Inga, for I tried. I tried to be short.
I stole some of the minutes at the beginning from you. But we have one, again, I will remind all our listeners and viewers, you can send in your questions. Of course, maybe it's not so easy now because you haven't seen the report. Maybe there will be later more questions when you will read them. But Aija, we have one question from a reader. It's quite maybe a bit technical. Someone is asking, why do you have Santa as a top magazine in Latvia? Shouldn't it be Ieva? I don't know, I don't remember the slide exactly, but could it be that Santa?
Just a second.
Or maybe it's meant the publishing house Santa, but Ieva is the one, because yes, Ieva always has.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's
a mistake in the presentation. It's in the report, it's Ieva, but it's just, yeah, I took Santa from, sorry.
We're thinking
Ieva it is.
Yeah, and then there is another question. Let's see. I don't know if you will be able, it's not kind of regarding so much media financials, but can you see if there have increased or decreased leaders, disinformation tendencies in media environment in 2019? I think this I am maybe not like your information in 2019. We don't measure just these things. It's more about financial.
Yeah.
But regarding this, actually, I have one question to you. At the beginning already, you said that overall, the main tendency is that audiences are decreasing for media. Do you have any guess, actually, why it's happening? Of course, there are differences. Online media is growing, but still for magazines, for radio, commercial media especially, audiences are going down. Maybe your guesses why it's happening like that.
I would say it's a change in habits. I mean, we do use more online and people don't go only to online media, but they also go to social media to get their news and also demographics. I think it's when we look in a longer period of time, the trend has been there for almost like 10 or 15 years, especially for the print. Like the audiences all the time are going down and there's just nothing really you can do. It's kind of just the way it is. So
thank you. Another question which I wanted to ask you while doing this research, what was the thing which most surprised you? Maybe there is some new tendency or something you didn't expect that you now realized it's there.
I wouldn't necessarily call it a trend, but reading our long-form articles about how in the different countries, how in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, the media dealt with the situation they were faced, I was surprised by the fact that media have this feeling of mission that we are there to provide information, to do public a good thing kind of by this providing information. But at the same time, I think what people don't understand that, well, I'm talking about consumers, like media consumers, is that, I mean, this content is, I mean, there are people who create it and it costs money. It actually costs quite a lot of money to prepare just a single article that you read on Tevenet or Delphi or anywhere else. And somehow I think the idea overall is that the media is something that should be there and should be there for free. But media companies are providing this public good service at their own cost. Because, I mean, at the time when the crisis hit, right, when the advertising revenues dropped, there wasn't really nobody who kind of like chipped in like, hey, I know you have a hard time. Maybe I should subscribe to as many newspapers or whatever as I could, kind of. And I don't know, maybe it's a job for the media itself to do more explanation work of how much does it cost to do journalism. But that kind of made me think, yeah. Because none of the journalists really counted the hours, right? At the time of the crisis, they worked like, well, 12 hours and so on. That's what journalists usually do. The same as all the others who are trying to put together the money for them to be able to do that?
Regarding this question, I can answer as a person who asked this question. I would encourage to stay, and later at 3 o'clock we will have another event, International Media Business Conference, where we will have a speaker from Reuters Institute, and they have done global research on media and consumptions of media and trust of media. And one of the conclusions they came to by showing it with numbers that trust to media has gone down. And so you can stay later and ask actually to Rasmus question yourself, and maybe he will have also more explanation about this, so we could go in detail more later. But it will start at 3 o'clock. It's a separate event with separate links, so please just follow up and be there. And Aija, another question: have you investigated the willingness to pay for the content in web, especially in Latvia and Lithuania? How willing people are to pay or not to pay? Because you yourself, you mentioned that Estonia is more advanced in digital, and Latvia and Lithuania a bit behind. Why?
I mean, we haven't really investigated that topic in particular, but because I've worked on the previous reports, the situation with Estonia is so that Estonian newspaper publishers are very strong, and overall the habit of reading newspaper is very strong. And when online developed, these newspapers also went online. And so it's kind of, I think in Estonia, people see the value in a sense to pay for the news. In Latvia and Lithuania, also when you look at the top most visited online news websites, both Delfi and TVNet are digital only and digital first, right? So they offer their content for free, and people, like even now, there are a lot of discussions whether people should pay €3 for to read some higher quality articles on Delfi or TVNet, and yes, so in that sense, I think I would say that most likely in a few years it might catch up. Because also Estonia has introduced subscriptions. Their publishing houses have been working on that already for almost 10 years, and that's a long period of time. And maybe, I don't know, 4 years for Latvia and Lithuania.
And also what we discussed and what you showed in your presentation, Estonia also offer more content for this subscription. Because these are publisher groups which have also magazines, so they have also more stories to sell for this. But I think we will be able to ask this question also to Zane, especially because TVNet just now launched their paywall. So thank you, Aija, very much. So still our viewers or readers or listeners, if you have questions, please still send in through this platform Slido. And Aija will stay with us, so I can also ask later some follow-up questions if there will be some from you. So now we are going further, and we will have a discussion about the future and how to earn and survive for Baltic Media. And for this discussion, we will have three presenters or participants. One will be Zane Bārtniece. She is a board member of TVNet, and as I mentioned, they just now launched the paywall in these days. Another speaker will be Naglis. He is a board member of Latvian Marketing Association, and also very interesting job title. I really asked Aija, is it true? Global Customer Success Director at HTT Pool. Global Customer Success Director at HTT Pool. So Maris, I will have a question about this. What does it actually mean? And then we also have Mogens Blicher Bjerregård. I hope I pronounced correctly. He is the president of European Federation of Journalists. And Mogens will give a short presentation because he has compiled data about state support to commercial media in different countries. But with Zane and Maris, I will ask questions and we will try to have like kind of discussion. And again, you are encouraged to participate by sending in your questions. Please use Slido as this platform. And to send your question, you have to use and enter the code, which is hashtag SSE with capital letters and media with the small letters. So please send your questions. I will be happy to ask them to our participants. So, but Zane, we will start with you because as I mentioned, you just launched your first paywall. And I just remember last year when we had still at present, and in all good times, people met for conferences in one room. There was Konstantins from Delfi giving presentation on their paywall. And at the time he was boosting that, and he was encouraging to join you, because otherwise they will again capture all of the market, and it will be harder for you to get into this market and ask people to subscribe. And just now, before this event, Konstantin sent me an SMS message by saying that they have now already 10,000 subscribers. So they are impressed with this number and satisfied. And my question to you is, why so late? Why just now? It took you a year after Delphi did it.
Okay, this is a tough one because honestly, we have worked for a while, almost a year, and this is a big, huge work. Started with surveys and so on, because there is no one strategy that will work, and we are still testing. If Delphi has 10,000 subscribers, I think in 1.5 years, we have our first 100 subscribers. So this is a start. Of course, it is really interesting period at the moment, and we are really glad to join with our ambitious brand called Click. And with that, we are joining a big list of the publishers all around the world. And honestly, we really believe that this is the way all media should go. And we are really happy to join the Delphi in this case as well.
Mm-hmm. So far, what we can see in Latvia, we have like 3 major publishers behind paywall. We have more, but you are like, I would say you are still the biggest. Like TVNet, your cost is like $3.99. Delphi is $2.99, and Santa Publishing House is around $50. So you are most expensive. Why? You think you are the best in quality, or how did you calculate the price?
I wouldn't say that we are most expensive, because we are selling 1 month, not 4 weeks. So it means that we are on a monthly basis at the moment. And it means that our cost consists, first of all, of course, of marketing research and cost calculations. You can look on ear.lv price as well. And price estimation contains expenses from editorial staff, of course. This is the main cost part. Commission for mobile payment. This is a bigger one. Marketing, IT tools, and so on. So in a long term, our break even is in 2 and 3 years. I would say this is not a bad situation. So overall, what I'm not happy for, I will speak truly, this is a commission for mobile payments. It consists even from the 40 to 50% from the cost. So I would say that the journalism could absolutely benefit if mobile operators could make their step forward by decreasing those costs. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are your main targets now? I don't know how much you can reveal. Of course, I assume your business information, but I don't know how much subscribers you would love to have, in first half year, for example. What are the main targets?
In 3 years, we plan to have at least 20,000 subscribers.
In 3 years?
In 3 years, yeah, at least. I would say I believe that it will be more, looking on the Delphi from the Delphi perspective. So let's see.
You said that you were doing this research and marketing research. What do you see? What is the content people are willing to pay for? Because I assume already now you are hearing why I should pay for TV if there is nothing to read. The same rhetoric where also when Delphi launched a paywall. What will be this main package you will offer to people?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, because there's no one big answer about that. I would say that they prefer to pay for news media without advertising. So this is the main thing that we are promoting as well. We are promoting our portals without advertising, Apollo, TVNet, and so on. This is one part. And second part, long reads and some investigation stuff about politics, about culture, sports, lifestyles. There's a lot of different types of content that they are interested in. Mostly the case is about the advertisings.
Mm-hmm. So what do you expect? What will happen to the advertising market? What are your predictions now? It will go still down?
You mean in the COVID period?
No, not only in COVID period now. It will, of course, affect COVID period, but because you have subscribers, but how do you project how much you will receive from advertising?
Of course, we are growing our sales because we don't have any other chances to pay the salaries. But overall, I would say that money is going more and more to international players, and which leaves us in a very little growth from the advertising, and it means that we are open to any governmental support as well. So in the long term, I would say that revenue money will be less and less because there are big players like Google, Facebook, and so on. So we launched the paywall, and in a 3-year basis, we see that our paywall can reach 50 to 25% of revenue. And in a perfect world, I would say 50% at least.
Like half.
Yeah, that would be great. If you look on the Norway example, they have a really good examples from the paywall perspective.
My last question before I go to Maris. As our Baltic Media Health Check also report shows that for the last 5 years, even it has been working with losses. Why? Can you explain why it was so?
There's a lot of reasons, but honestly, our numbers at the moment shows that we are going in the right direction. And we are going better and better, and in the soon future, I see even a positive result. If we look on the last 3 years, we have reduced our losses 4 times. So this is a huge, how to say, win in a big way. And we, of course, have increased the revenue a lot, of course, as well. But overall, we see that money is going away, and this is the part. And as I like us to call us with Delphi as a partners, because we are on the same boat in this case, this doesn't help that the money goes away. So we already spoke about the digital tax and so on. What can we do in this situation? But yeah, the salaries needs to be paid. As I told, it costs.
A bit follow-up question, but what was the reason? How did you increase? You also have a growth in readership. At some time periods, you have even been ahead of Delphi. So what was this? What you did different, or what's something maybe changing your content, or why was this run ahead of Delphi?
First of all, we invest in our people. With investing in our people, I mean. We made a lot of changes in our team and made a change of perspective, how we see journalism and everything. So first of all, we grow our audience last 2 years for about 24% of users on a monthly basis. This is a huge number. So I would say this year we can call us as a leader. But as I told that we don't see Delphi that much as a competitor, but more like a partner in this situation. So that is first, we gain our page use audience, loyalty. Second, of course, this doesn't mean that it doesn't always change much in terms of advertising money in this small period. It's a long term. And so we are fighting together for this money that is in the market, and that are splitting a lot of media in it. We are a lot of here if you look from the digital perspective. So yeah, and content wise as well, we change a lot of perspective how we see long reads and so on, and let's see how it will impact, how the content will be impacted after the click launching the click. Sorry.
So the long reads maybe is one of the main thing what
long reads as well.
People are going to see. Okay, thank you very much for again sending questions. Aija, just a short notice. There are some questions for you, so maybe you can read and prepare, and I will ask you when we will be over with the panel discussion. Just go to Slido, please, yourself too.
Okay.
So Maris, let's start with you now. So please, can you explain what your job title means? Global Customer Success Director at HTT Pool. What are you exactly doing?
It's exactly what it says, actually. The title is the simplest one. Briefly, what we're doing at HTT Pool, we do represent the major international media platforms all across multiple countries. And by major, I mean we authorize sales partner for Facebook, and we represent TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, I mean, you name it. Basically what title says is exactly what I do. I do help clients to globally expand from any country to any country. So basically it doesn't matter, either from Latvia, you want to go worldwide to United States, UK, to Asia. So we do help to do that, and vice versa, if somebody wants to come to the Europe as well. So that's what we do.
Okay, so you are this I'm sorry not to offend you, but you are those bad ones who are taking away money from media markets and putting into Facebook and all these big digital platforms.
We can
and you are successful, as I can see, and we can see because more money goes away. So can you please start by this saying it's becoming worse for traditional media? Yes, you will be more and more successful. What are your predictions in your business?
Yes, we're quite successful, thank you. But no, I mean, the point is, because maybe you pointed out that I'm also on the board of Latvian, not marketing, but advertising association. It doesn't matter maybe, but just if seriously, then maybe a couple of remarks, also the notes regarding some points previously. So if we look at the media, it's not that it's declining, the audience is not declining for all the media groups. Like if you take the TV, for example, TV, if you look at the commercial channels, yes, the total viewership is dropping a bit. But if you look at TV as a whole, I mean, in the Baltics and especially in Latvia and Lithuania, actually it's kind of stabilized. Last like 2-3 years, it's not so bad anymore. So it's not dropping anymore. So just a one note. But if you ask me about the money, what's happening now in the advertising market, obviously, of course, yes, a lot of viewers are going to Facebook and Google because of, if we look to the two parts, one is export usually, but we don't talk about export, we talk about the local media money. So, and by some estimations across the Baltics, it's across maybe 60 million euros, something like that. So anyways, to make it look even a bit worse, if we look to the whole media pie, I also would like to emphasize that now I do understand that we talk from the perspective of the local journalism. I mean, in that case, we also have to actually deduct like outdoor media euros. So in that case, we should take off additional 40 million euros from the total market, which would be 300 minus 40. And then even more, if we look to the local market, we should deduct also the not local TV channels, which are not producing the local content as well. So you add 10 or something million more. So we're basically deducting down to the 250, something like that, what we can operate with a local journalism area. But regarding the total what's happening on the advertising market, I always like to emphasize one important thing. We always look from the media side, what's happening with audiences, and it's growing, dropping. Actually, quite often it doesn't matter because there is money always is coming from advertisers. And as much advertisers are willing to invest, as much we're going to have in our market. So we shouldn't wait that suddenly increasing audience for one or other channel, we're going to get more euros into our pockets. No, it's not going to happen. It has been proved. The best what we saw actually last, I don't know, I'm in the media market like 20, 22 years. What I saw the best one was that the Baltic advertising market growth is twice bigger than GDP growth. That was the good years. But in general, it's approximately the same tempo. It's like 3 to 5%. So technically, I would always emphasize that we should look at the total chunk of the money, like 300 million euros, let's say. It's going to grow just gradually. It will not explode. So that's the most important look from the advertiser perspective. That's the biggest problem at this point.
Yeah, but you are saying like very good point that the growth of audience doesn't mean that there will be more advertising money. So actually, that's my question. By seeing all these trends, what Aija mentioned, I assume you know yourself, you can write a book about it. How actually has changed the habits and traditions of advertisers? What they are actually looking for? If not the audience grows, what they actually are looking for, what they want for their products to be replaced on?
Yeah, look, the problem is two parts. One part is the kind of the most interesting one. Let's look at TV environment landscape in the Baltics, especially again, Lithuania and Latvia. It's overbooked. Now, like literally, if I would go to one of the biggest TV channel groups, I wouldn't be able to buy TV spot for the next month. It's overbooked. And the problem with the chicken and the egg, of course, the inflation is going to be there. Also in Latvia, for the biggest group, inflation going to be 15-ish or whatever. I don't know, more than 10%, definitely. I think so. For the Lithuania, also something like that could be more than 10% inflation for TV advertising. Those guys are simply not capable to boost the inflation so high so that they could earn more money, because it's kind of, there should be balance, but all the time they overbook 96, 95, and sometimes even in Lithuania have seen more than 100%, something like that. So that's the one problem, because the purchasing power kind of is on the place in our markets. But there is one metric which is identifying that technically we can grow. So if you look to the old Europe, as I like to say, I mean the mature markets, the usual investment per capita is approximately 200 to 400 euros. I mean, it depends how you calculate, it depends by markets, France, Germany, Spain, you name it. But in our markets, like if you look to Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, it's in the range from 40 to 80 euros. So technically, twice, 3 times, 4 times more we could get in per capita. So there is a potential. But if you ask me about what are advertisers looking at, I would say it's kind of complicated. That all of the landscape, like ecosystem partners are actually struggling with catching up with all the trends. So, I mean, we do our best, but we still see that advertisers are not being able to adapt to the digital, whatever, I hate this word transformation, but there is this digital transformation term. So basically, a lot of advertisers are struggling to do that. And the legacy big brands, actually international brands, we still see that the briefs are still coming in the plans like, I don't know, 99% TV. I mean, no digital at all, because that's a strategy has been for the last 25 years and it's working. But the second problem also is the media as well. Local media is still doing experiments looking how to get this money. Like I know myself, like for example, TVNet and Delphi, they have tested a lot for programmatic. I mean, the approach, what kind of money, how can we get additional euros in? So as well as actually also agencies, it's a big part of the ecosystem, and that probably a separate discussion, but agencies are holding, media agencies holding most of the advertising euros, which are going to the traditional brands, media brands in Latvia. And also for them, it's a big challenge to use the new channels. And but to point out that a while ago, actually, also the YouTube and Facebook were struggling because it takes time to learn how to set up campaigns, how to use it effectively. So the biggest problem, in one sentence, actually, advertisers are looking for the effectiveness. Technically, you know, they don't care. I mean, some of them care, but basically they do care about the effectiveness and business outcome. If you can bring back ROI, it's going to be fine. So that's the first focus should be on that.
Okay, I read also your comment, which will be published on, it is published on Baltic Media Health Check. Sorry, it seemed a bit too diplomatic because I know that you know a lot and always in advertising business, everyone is referring, we should talk to Maris. Maris knows everything. But I wrote out this one sentence out of your this column, which is published there. There are various options to enable local media outlets to succeed. It's partly what you told now. And then the key, effective advertising solutions to bring tangible business results. Can you mention some effective advertising solutions? You mentioned, it's complicated. It depends on traditions of advertisers on all this stuff. But can you maybe mention some examples which were or have been successful, or even maybe something what failed? You tried, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, I would even suggest to look up not only the digital channels, we can look also at digital channels, but if we look wider. One example would be TV. I mean, the clutter on TV, as I mentioned, huge. To be effective, obviously, it's not rocket science. You should reduce the clutter. The second one regarding the effective solutions, let's not point any fingers, let's not name any media, but probably all of us do know that we are still struggling with technology online. For example, one of the biggest media outlets now is offering the video on demand service, advertising supported, so-called AVOD. If I go to this portal and I open the video, what I want to look, and if I see that it's like now it's scrolling 1 of 7 ads pre-roll, come on. It's like 2020. And the second example could be actually from yesterday. The other day, actually, I was opening and I wanted to watch, like, I don't know, the recap of hockey, something like that. Oh, I'm naming too much, so it's really easier to identify. But the point is, I was offered 60-second spot pre-roll. Come on, like really. So what I mean, we should adapt. We should be ready that this is completely different environment if we want to take those ad dollars. And even if we look to the traditional and kind of digital savvy brands like Zane representing and Delphi as well and others, also a long way to go. I mean, we're still learning. We're still looking for the best performing solutions because we introducing time by time new formats like native, digital native, like branding, something like that. But it's still, I mean, if we always talk about the advertising euros, in this case, going to the whatever, Google, Facebook, other platforms, technically advertisers are not buying platforms, they're buying audience and effectiveness. So that means that return from those channels is working I'm not saying that it's not working for the local channels, but there is a way to improve our performance, and then advertiser euro is going to go in this channel. Definitely. I mean, there is no other explanation.
Have you measured and compared how effective results are from like these big social media platforms and like from traditional media? How effectively you can reach the audience? Do you have some numbers like 50%?
I mean, it doesn't make sense to compare in this case, as you're saying, just 50, 40 or something like that. It's totally campaign by campaign. I know that the answer is kind of, generic, but it is because the biggest, I will not go in details, but the media market do understand this term attribution. I mean, which channel I should attribute the benefits? I mean, because none of the advertisers, really just in a couple of cases, are using just one channel. Usually it's multiple channels, multiple touch points. It's social media, it's local digital, it's TV and so on. So in this attribution is still in like a baby steps, in not only in the Baltics, actually, all across the world. And so this kind of attributing what works better is really hard. Only in the case if you use one channel, and there are some huge advertisers which use, for example, just Facebook, it's obviously we see the return, definitely it's working because business is positive. So yeah, it's really hard to answer because we should take case by case.
Last two questions. How do you calculate yourself how much from Baltic media advertising money goes now to social, to these big international giant platforms? Not only social media, of course, like Amazon, for example, is not social media, but it's also big.
Look, yeah, Amazon probably could be a different story because it's, what I was looking at.
Sorry, like let's assume like Spotify, Netflix, Facebook.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, from multiple sources putting together, Google plus Facebook could be 60 billion, 60. Approximately. I mean, nobody knows, and honestly, we don't know either. But if you add some other channels, what you mentioned, like the new and trending channels like Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, and so on, let's say it could be up to 100 million. I'm just making ground now. But at this point, this could be about 100 million, but targeted to the local audience. That's the most important to understand, because platforms going out money from our markets, from Baltic exporters, is a huge amount. I mean, because a lot of good companies are coming from the Baltics and using those platforms. So yeah, the local money could be up to 100 million.
Okay, the last question. Now, TVNet launched this paywall. What would be your suggestion to them? Like what to take into account? Like if advertisers are coming to you, will you send to, of course, I know it depends on product, but would you send to TVNet, or there would be some things to choose some other channels?
Oh, geez, that's going to be, I mean, I even didn't mention to send Zane good luck yet. I mean, one day just, but yeah, I mean, guys, all of us do know that it's kind of partly also gambling, because we have seen how the big names, big outlets worldwide have struggled at the beginning. Wall Street and whatever, like New York Times, all of them just went through this curve of learning and trying to do something. And honestly, I have also studied a lot of those cases to understand maybe it's a success story, and there is no one success story, so nobody knows the outcome. But in this case, I would say the one remark is that there is no way back. That's my opinion. I mean, as soon as you go into partly to the paywall, as soon as you're going to introduce a bit different also advertising model, because TVNet took like, if it's going to be empty without advertising, I mean the click, and the other part going to be advertising, obviously they're going to be changed. It's going to be a bit more expensive, maybe something like that, different. Anyways, there is no way back, because later on, simply just to cancel paywall and to get back on the status quo as it was, it's impossible. So the answer is just go all in. I don't know. Let's see what's going to happen. Nobody knows, because there is no good or bad. And Delphi has proved it as well, because they learn a lot of lessons, painful lessons, and maybe the good for TVNet, I guess, is that they knew already some lessons, like what Zane mentioned about the payments. I know that Delphi struggled a lot. So, but yeah, good luck, guys.
Sorry, Marius, we have one question from our readers, so I will read it to you. So don't you think that advertisers are basically interested in efficiency? This is what I think you already explained. And the follow-up question, and at the moment, local channels are lacking for showing of effectiveness.
Not really. I wouldn't agree. I would even say that we're simply lacking maybe good sales pitch, because sometimes let's understand the simple basics. If we look to the total advertising market, we never separate like international money and the local money, but there is a huge difference. Either the brief comes, let's say, from London, from Warsaw, from whatever, New York sometimes, that agencies just simply execute the common strategy for the whole EMEA region. So basically for our local media, sometimes even there's no possibility to pitch themselves. So I would say just such kind of structure. And I hope that with the time it's going to change a bit, and with the help of technology as well, so that we will be able to highlight the benefits of local media and the context.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you. But please, Mari, don't go away. Maybe some more questions will come in. And again, people...
I'm in the office. I'm not going to leave for many hours from now.
You're still working from the office. Thank you very much. I first time see a person who speaks the same fast as me, so I don't feel so lonely. But so let's go now to the Mogen. Hello, Mogen. I know that you are listening and hearing that you are among us. So maybe you can please set up your presentation now. Super, I can see it already happening. And so I will shortly introduce, as I mentioned before, Mogen Blicher Bjerregård. He's the president of European Federation of Journalists, and he's from Denmark. And he has compiled data on how in other countries state supports media and also commercial media, and taking into account what we've seen what happened during COVID, and also before Latvia already Latvian media receives state support financially. I think this will be only a growing issue among many European countries, especially small ones like Baltic countries where we have small advertising markets. So that's why we are very happy to have Mogen to explain us what he has summarized, and maybe to see what we can do also in the future. So Mogen, please, microphone is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope my screen is shared now.
We can see your presentation.
Okay, very good. And it was, and thank you for the invitation. I think it is a very important topic that you are touching upon, and it was very interesting to listen to the former speakers. And it reminds me that when you talk about the financing of media, there are normally, you would say, actually four different channels to finance media. One is the subscription, the second one is advertising, and the third one is public funding. And then actually there's a fourth one as well, which is quite interesting. This is where you have media investing in events and other and add-on activities that actually give some more funding of media. But what I have been asked to do here is to give an overview of what possibilities do you have when you have public funding of private media? How do you support private media? I had the pleasure myself 10 years ago to be on the board of a committee set up by the Minister of Culture in Denmark to find a new model of public funding of private media. And what was quite great, and what I liked when we were there was that from around the table with all stakeholders on board, what we agreed very much about was that this is not about supporting private media. This is about supporting democracy. And why we did it was because most or almost all public funding of media at that time went to print media. And while digital media was more and more digital media, there was a real need to find new models. So we tried to do it, and we actually did so. See if this works. So what are the different models when you look at national media support? Well, we had and have still zero VAT for newspapers. When VAT was introduced in Denmark many years ago, it was said that the free word and the death should not have VAT. And since that time, the newspapers, they have not had VAT in Denmark. But you have different models around Europe, and you have many places actually reduced VAT. This is a sort of support for a pluralistic media market, because that is what it's about. You have distribution support, which was one of the most normal ways of supporting media. But when you see less and less printed media being distributed, then you have less and less support for media, because it doesn't count for the digital media, and they need support as well. And that's why many places it went to be the daily costs instead. How to support production of news outlets, regardless if it's a print media or a digital media. Support for innovation, I find that very important. come back to this. Investigative reporting is another way to support. EU is supporting investigative reporting, and some other countries are doing the same in different ways. And then you can have some compensation for loss of advertising, but that's in particular now when you have in the COVID-19 crisis, but also if you have some media not relying that much on advertising, but crucial for the pluralism. I'll give you just go into 3 different models. The 2 of them very brief, and then a bit more in the Danish model because this is the one I know best. In Sweden, they have a contribution for content, and it is a very old-fashioned way calculated per millimeter newspaper column, and the highest support is for number 2 paper. But you have less and less number 2 paper in cities now. They have distribution support. They have special support for local media. You just talked about local media before, and local media is something that's on the agenda and focus on in many countries now. And there's a very new support model in Sweden for innovation, and this is in particular to develop new online media. Another country, Belgium, they have a direct support for production, and this is for independent newsroom and only for independent newsroom, and they have to respect collective agreements, and the support is calculated per employee. They also got distribution support, 50% reduction, and then we're talking about advertisings because the public service media has advertisings, and the income from those public service media, they are redistributed to commercial TV and also for print media, and 24% of this goes to print media. This is another way to, I mean, this is not public money, this is private money, but redistributed through public legislation. And then they have a special investigative fund, 300,000 euro per year, and it actually gives around 23 grants per year, and it is quite important for the news outlet to have this, because they can do something they wouldn't be able to do. And then get to the Danish model. We have the zero VAT for newspapers, which has a value of 140 million euro. It is getting less and less because of you get less newspapers simply. And then the new model was support for production. That was the one we proposed in 2012, and it was introduced in 2014 by law, where the prerequisite to receive support for production is that at least 50% must be editorial content, and a great part of it must be also unique content in your news outlet. And the support is depending on how many journalists they are hired, and you cannot get more. You cannot receive more than 35% of the salary of the journalists. And there is a ceiling per title, the newspaper title of 2.5 million euros. So this is the maximum a title can get. The idea about having the titles is, I'll just give a few words on that, because you have, media are merging, and you have maybe 3 or 4 big local media companies in Denmark now. But because of this, the ceiling per title, it has the impact that most of those local media, they are still there. Even they have merged, they didn't merge they used to merge also local media before, but because of this, we have managed to maintain more local media that we would have been able to maintain in Denmark. This is my perception, because then they would simply lose the money. But it's not only about the money, it's also to ensure that you have free editorial, free newsrooms and independent newsrooms from each other, so you're not mixed as much as it could be mixed. The idea was also to have an equal treatment of print and online media. That's why we went away from support for distribution to support for production. there are some few niche media in Denmark. They don't get much advertising. They would never get much advertising, but they are very important for pluralism. And so there was made a special paragraph that made it possible for those media to get more, to get a bigger part of the support. But if they should get more advertising, then they would not be able to get it anymore. And then there's an innovation fund with 2 million euro, which is actually quite interesting, because this innovation fund has showed also that something has to be changed in the future. Because when you introduce a model like this, it will not last for only for some years, because media is changing. Yes, that was the committee that was set up. It's, as I said, it's a support for democracy, and it was about keeping arm's length principle. The challenges that we have and still have is the VAT system. We had a big discussion about the VAT. Should we drop the zero VAT and spend the money? Actually, we were asked, just use the same money, you can use it in the way you want to use them. So we discussed it. We did never agree on how to use the VAT. So it's still the zero VAT, but you're losing the value of it in line with fewer newspapers distributed. Then the code of ethics. Our approach was that those news outlets receiving support should follow the code of ethics and be part of the press council in Denmark. This is no problem for print media, because they are by law part of the press council, but not the digital media. Because of EU rules, the ministry didn't dare to put this in as a prerequisite, but after some years now, it is also a prerequisite that you should be a part of the press council, also as a digital media. Another challenge was to avoid international companies to benefit from this, and that the idea was actually to make a full platform neutral support system, regardless of print, digital, broadcast. But if we did so, the big international broadcast companies, they would have swallowed almost all the support. So that's why it was only for print and digital media. And this has created another challenge today. I'll just make a few comments on the present challenges. I'll come back to this about radio. One of the challenges is to maintain the amount of support, because it is in the law that we have this support of approximately 60 million euro per year. It has decreased 10% due to many other situations where the budget was cut. So this is a challenge that I have to deal with. Another challenge is that the media develops faster than legislation. And you talked about local media, and we see local media across Europe have big problems today. So I believe, and it is also discussed, that local media should have a bigger part of the media support. So this is something that should be considered. Then I come to radio, because podcasts is an increasing platform, and this is not reflected in the law. That means if some of those media receiving support today, they put more stuff into podcasts, then it is not counted as a part of the 50% content. And then suddenly you could come in a position where you don't have the right to receive support anymore. So this is one of the big challenges that I think should be changed, and show that you have to look at it, you have to review your support systems regularly. When it comes to innovation fund, there are too many criteria. It has been difficult for startups to fulfill all demands. It has also been regulated a bit, so it's easier now to have the balance between risks and relevance. this was about, I don't know if I should stop here now, because I have some 2 slides about a bit slightly.
Maybe Mogens, thank you very much. Maybe you can keep the slides so we can read them, but I will ask you 2 questions.
Yes, please.
It was like really perfect presentation. Like, thank you very much. Like, just like we requested you to talk about. One thing is, you just mentioned that it's a 10% is decreasing. I don't know, you meant Denmark, or you meant?
Yeah, Denmark. That's Denmark. You have different models around.
Yeah, that's my question is, can you see that in general, it's actually a trend that more and more states are coming in to support commercial media, like we can see what's happening in Baltics. Latvia, I think, is the #1. Estonia, they are trying to get the same similar support system like it's in Latvia. Do you see it's also in European countries? It's kind of growing trend to ask for money from a state for commercial media to survive, or it's something more specific for Baltics?
No, I see that there is a trend for it. Iceland tried to make a proposal during the last 1 or 2 years, but they failed in doing it. They were looking at Norway and Denmark, trying to find a mixed model, but so far they have failed. But there is a request for having such a thing in. I have also been in Luxembourg telling about this way of supporting media. In the Netherlands, they have asked me for ideas, for inspiration. So it is talk of the media in many countries, how to deal with this, and in particular because we have seen how advertisings have moved from European media to the high-tech companies, as we also talked about before. So their media are under pressure. And as I said, I see more and more local media under pressure. They're simply disappearing. And what is the one of the challenges that we have in Europe is that in many countries, in particular in the Central Eastern Europe and in the Balkan countries, they are a bit skeptical to have public funding of media, because they have some other history that shows them that might not be a good thing. They are afraid that the state will influence on the media, and this it's a very important question, because this is really a prerequisite of it for it, that there should not be any influence from the state on media when you have such systems. They should really keep arm's length.
Exactly, that's my second follow-up question. Like, yes, how actually to determine, because the numbers, there's some criteria which you showed were quite mathematical, like how many people are working. It depends, this support from the state, from a number of employees and so on. But in Latvia, we kind of had this type of criteria during COVID time, when the state granted these 2 million euros. And then there was kind of huge debates and a bit small like scandal. That money also went to media which are not considered as a high quality, but just when you take account only this mathematical criteria, they were also eligible for this funding. So do you have any kind of suggestion or idea how to provide money for media by evaluating quality of the content, but still avoid being influenced by government by saying what kind of content you should produce? How to find this balance that you give money for quality journalism, but still you protect freedom of speech?
It is a very good and important question. What I see here is that the best way to deal with this is when you have a press council, you have the self-regulatory system on place, because with a self-regulatory system, with a code of ethics made by the media themselves, and they stick to those code of ethics, then it is the media that create what is quality, what is professionalism. It is very, very dangerous to have some to make some other measures on what is high quality, what is quality, what cannot be seen as quality. It is in the end of the day the readers, the listeners, the viewers who decide it. But to make sure that it is that you respect press freedom, you respect your quality and everything. The self-regulatory system must be in place and it must be strong. And actually, the EU and the EFTA that I'm representing, we have made such a project during the last year on how to develop media council, press councils in the digital age of the media.
Thank you very much, Mogens. Thank you very much for your presentation. We will now go further with our event. I really appreciate that you found time, because you know that you are busy and with one leg in another event currently as well.
It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you. And so now we are going back to Aija, because Aija, now I can ask the follow-up questions which we received from on Slido. And one is regarding what actually is a topic which we discussed among ourselves about how do you comment that the state companies are on the top with their budgets, and then there are suffering private medias? Isn't that unfair? Maybe just as a reminder, when it takes the public media budgets, we could see that in Estonia, how much it was, 45 million?
It was 47 million euros in 2019, and in Lithuania, it's 43 million euros. And in Estonia and Lithuania, radio is together with TV. In Latvia, the total budget, like the entities are separated, but the total budget is around 30 million euros. But that is a very tough question about the state media, because it's about the role which a public broadcaster plays in the media environment. I mean, many years ago, when the discussion started that the public media should exit the advertising market, the idea behind it was that this money would then go to the commercial media and would they would be basically able to take it and use for their benefit. But I mean, I don't know. Actually, maybe Mars has some estimates whether that has actually proven true. But what we can see is that especially in Estonia and Lithuania, the budgets of the public broadcasters have expanded enormously in the last few years. And yes, I wouldn't want to say necessarily that it's unfair to the commercial media, but I think it does raise a few questions. So what is that content which the public media are producing, and how they are competing in which areas, maybe with private broadcasters as well?
Yeah, guys, I would definitely agree. That's the question of the content, and definitely it's raising a lot of questions, because you have to take into account also the difference between the markets. Because let's say Estonian advertising market, if you look at that, the split is totally different, because the TV there is by far less share in total advertising euros than in Latvia and Lithuania. But if you look to the national broadcaster, it's the euros are the top one. So, but I wouldn't take any conclusions, because it's definitely the analysis of the content. And guys, we also pointed out in the report that the Lithuanians and Estonians already filed regarding the web presence of the national companies, media companies. So yeah, a lot of questions, but there are no answers yet. We have discussed also in Latvia multiple times. I mean, does it make sense or it doesn't? And what's going to happen when Latvian TV and Latvian radio, national radio, going to be out of the advertising market? So yeah, it's just more questions than answers, unfortunately, at this point.
Thank you very much. I think maybe we can just shortly explain that what did Estonian Media or Producers Association. Yeah, they went to EU court against public broadcaster by complaining that the public broadcaster is also producing entertainment for state money, entertaining content on their online platforms, and it should be kind of reduced. Otherwise, advertising money is taken away from commercial media. So let's see, it will be very interesting precedent. And and the second question, which is also, I think, every year we've spoken with us among us about it as well. Can you comment on why LV media publishers perform worse in terms of financial situation than Estonia and Lithuania? This is also what we have discussed, that advertising money is less
Yes,
in
the
Latvia.
Latvian advertising market is the smallest, like in absolute terms, the Latvian advertising market is the smallest of the 3 Baltic countries. I mean, in Estonia, as also Maris mentioned before, so the per capita, what advertisers spend on one person is around 80 euros, while in Latvia and Lithuania, the amount is around 40-45 euros. So that would be kind of one thing that simply advertisers put in less money. But the other thing, maybe it is something something connected with the pricing, actually, because especially when I look at when we looked in this year's report about how Latvian media companies are pricing their digital products. I mean, I really don't believe that the products produced here are like lower quality or somehow worse than they are in Lithuania or Estonia. Okay, Estonia is a big package, but still. So maybe that is something that can be there. And it's also, sometimes I think simply from the budget and financial kind of view, if you increase the price, yes, you will likely lose some readers. But then on the other hand, like if it helps you to become more profitable, like why not actually? Because if we talk about business is business, then business goal is to have a profit.
Thank you very much. Regarding this, I encourage people to come back after half an hour at 3 o'clock when we will start our next event, Reinventing Media Business International Under Forum. And there will be a great speaker from Slovakia. He was editor of the leading Slovakian newspaper, and the newspaper was bought by a local oligarch. 45 journalists quit, including him, and they established a newspaper which was profitable already after 3 years. And their main metric, why I'm telling this, is not how many people read it, but how many people buy and pay for their stories. So Tomas' presentation, I've seen it. It's like really cool. Please stay. Now we are finishing this event. Thank you very much for all participants, for everyone who watched or listened. Depends on which device you were using. Again, if you want to read the report, please do it. You can find it on SSE Riga website. I understand that you can also see a link during this presentation. If you want to get the paper copy, we have also this old school style version. We have some copies we are happy to share. Then please get in touch with us. I had to mention an email address which I forgot already, but you can just write me on Facebook or an SSE Media Center Facebook page, and there will be people who will kindly respond to you. So thank you so far, and I'm looking forward to meet and see you all again after half an hour when we will start our international conference. Have a good day and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.